This conference will now be recorded.
Thank you one and all for being a part of the Eduloans webinar series. We are going to be discussing today, we have our financial partners online with us. From Prodigy Finance, we have Mr. Pritish Nair. He's the Business Development Manager on behalf of Prodigy for Pan India. He will be taking us through the entire presentation about Prodigy, and he will let us know what are the benefits of applying through Prodigy Finance and getting your loan funding done for your overseas education. At the end of the session, we would have a question and answer session, and you can feel free to put your questions in the chat box to the right of your screen, where we as organizers at Eduloans, as well as Pritish, would be able to view your questions as a presenter, and he would answer those questions as and when he goes along. Or if he feels it right, he would answer those questions towards the end of the presentation. We now hand over this session to Mr. Pritish Nair, and he will take us through this entire session, giving the best inputs about Prodigy Finance to us. Pritish, I now hand over the webinar session to you so you can take it forward, and we are here to assist in case if required. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gurpreet, for that quick run-up, and appreciate the opportunity and the efforts in organizing this webinar. I would like to thank all the attendees joining us here today. I know it's a Saturday and the weather seems a bit hot in a couple of parts of the country, so thank you all for actually taking the time to do this. By a quick round of introduction, my name is Pritish Nair. I'm a part of the business development team here at Prodigy Finance, and I'm super excited to be here. The architecture of this presentation is going to be pretty simple. I just have 5 slides for you, right? That's actually just 5 slides. So I'll be covering 5 concepts. And by the end of this, you would have not only the knowledge on how to apply with the Prodigy Finance loan, but also to understand education loans a bit more better, right? So without further ado, you can start chatting and start posting your questions on the chat box here. I'm just gonna leave a quick message here. So this should pop up, and I will take the questions as and when, as Gurpreet just mentioned. Great. So today we're going to talk about how we can help fund your dreams in 30 minutes or less. So let me start off with who we are today. Right? We are a decade later in operations. This is our 11th year of operations that Prodigy Finance is currently in the industry. And over the past couple of years, we have funded more than 132 nationalities. We have dispersed more than $650 million in loans across 15,000 students. Our inception goes all the way back in the year 2007, as I mentioned earlier, and we support 5 disciplines as of today. That's top 100 MBA programs, top 100 MS programs, public policy, law, and a few medical sciences programs as well. We have 3 offices across the globe, so we don't have 132 offices for all 130 nationalities. We have 3 offices. We are governed and regulated by the FCA, so we're headquartered in the London. All the magic that actually happens behind your screen, because Prodigy Finance is an online product, happens via our operations center in Cape Town. And it only made sense for us to have a New York office in the year 2014 because more than half of the schools that we actually support are in the United States. Of course, over the past 10 years, a lot of publications, some to name Forbes, Financial Times, the Wall Street Journal, has picked up the really good work that we have been doing. And I will share a quick snippet on what was captured last year. But before that, what I really want to talk about and what you should actually ask yourself is, how does Prodigy Finance lend without collateral or cosigner? How is it that we are the only institution in the world to lend without both of them, right? So these are basically the 5 pillars of who we are as a company. One is we have a unique credit assessment that understands your postmaster's income. We understand that you're going to a really, really good school, right? So if the school has decided that you are deserving enough to be in their cohort, we don't want to second guess that with collateral or a cosigner, because we understand you're going to a top school in the world and you probably deserve the best funds at the best terms and conditions. Two, since our enforceability is uniquely enforceable in 150 countries, that makes it easy for us in terms of risk appetite. So if you asked what is a guarantee or what is a risk appetite, this is not to scare you, but we are enforceable in 150 countries. There have been barely any cases over the last 10 years amongst those 15,000 students where we have had people defaulting, because we support a really, really niche market and we support the brightest talent in the world. Three, I mentioned this earlier, which is we are governed by the Financial Conduct Authority. Now, I'm an Indian myself, and I understand by the names of the folks attending this webinar, we are more or less a very Indian audience. So the FCA is basically the Financial Conduct Authority. It is the equivalent of RBI. It is basically the United Kingdom's RBI, right? Which means higher regulations, more transparency, and so on. We don't do this because we have to. We do this because we want to be very transparent, and you will actually observe this over the next couple of minutes. The fourth thing is what makes us very different is our partnerships. We work with all those 497 schools, all those 400 plus schools in the earlier slide directly with their financial aid officers. So we understand when candidate A and candidate B, or those 100 candidates, are going to a certain school and when the disbursement is actually due. So we have all those details that are worked out in the back end. All you need to do is go to school, attend your curriculum, take your extracurricular activities, have a great time on campus, and we take care of all disbursements because we partner with all these universities exclusively. And the last thing, which we are very, very proud of, because at the end of the day, Prodigy Finance is a fintech company, right? Our entire process is 100% online. The reality is you never need to meet anyone from Prodigy Finance. You never need to visit our office. You never need to submit a hard copy. In fact, you have counselors at Eduloans who will be able to help you as much as you're getting informed on this webinar, or you could directly just go onto our website and self-serve. It's pretty simple. All you need is an active internet connection, a desktop or a laptop or a mobile phone, and you can get your funding sorted in 30 minutes or less. I'm going to just quickly hover through and see if we have questions. I see some really interesting questions coming in. I'm going to pick these two up right now, and then I'm going to continue the presentation. Are there any prepayment charges? Yash, I think this is a really interesting question, and I'm going to cover it in the next slide. And yes, Sahil's question, is this loan without a GRE and GMAT? Absolutely. You do not need a GRE or GMAT because the only prerequisite to any Prodigy Finance loan is attending a top 100 school. In fact, to understand your loan quote or your rate, you don't really need an admit. If you're going to a top 100 MS program or a top 100 MBA program in the world, you can go ahead and you can apply for a quote, and we do not really need your GRE or GMAT score because that evaluation is done by the admissions committee and not by us. We trust the school's decision in terms of your scores. So the only eligibility is you attending a top 100 score. So I spoke about a lot of publications that I mentioned earlier on the second slide. Just last year, this article is actually live on Forbes. As I said, Prodigy Finance is a decade-old company right now. And what we have actually established is that our model works, right? We've really disrupted the student loan education market. And for the last 10 years, it clearly works. We have been able to do borderless funding and supporting talent across borders for over a decade. We raised over $1 billion in funds just in the last 11 to 12 months by the likes of Deutsche Bank, Goldman Sachs, M&G Investments, and so on. What this means for you is we will be able to support more schools, more programs, and more students across the world. I don't want to harpoon too much around this, but this article is on Forbes.com. A quick Google search with Prodigy Finance Forbes should get you this article, just in case you were thinking about credibility. So now let's talk about the Prodigy Finance advantage, right? All Prodigy Finance loans are without collateral and cosigner. You never need any one of them. In fact, even if you have collateral, we will not accept it because you are taking the loan and there is no cosigner attached to it. Two, all interest rates are customized. We are not traditional banks or NBFCs. Actually, we are neither, right? We are an international lender. So what we look at is your profile in the 30 minutes when you start that online application. 51 proprietary variables get taken into consideration, and in 30 minutes, the minute you hit submit, you get a customized interest rate anywhere between 5 to 8.5%, which is your fixed component, and then there's of course a variable depending on the currency that you borrow in. I see a question about here in ITR. The problem with ITR is that's actually for INR loans. Since our loans are in USD, euros, and pounds, there would be no tax exemptions on a Prodigy Finance loan. What you need to actually understand is, to counter that, or the benefits of a Prodigy Finance loan, is there are no hidden charges. All our loan letters are free. You only sign and you confirm the loan from your side when you arrive in the country of study. That is basically, if you were going for a fall 2020, you would go somewhere around September. So when you land in September first week, you sign your loan agreement then, and then it gets confirmed from your end. However, we give you the confirmation much in advance once you start the application. And there are no prepayment penalties. So if, let's say, you get an RA or a TA, right? Everyone wants to assume they would get one, and I would really wish everyone the best of luck if you could get these extra opportunities, because it really helps take off some of that financial burden. But do not assume you would get it, account for it, and if you do get it, write us an email and you can make a prepayment immediately, and interest would not be charged on that prepayment. We do not work like other banks where we penalize you for making a prepayment. We do not even penalize you for making a lump sum repayment. Let's say classes end, my interest starts to accrue, and I win the lottery. And this is a hypothetical situation just to make you understand. You can go ahead and you can pay the entire loan in a day if you are in the capacity to do so. You wouldn't be penalized for it. Just talking about interest rate, because I see some interesting questions over here. So ROI, as we call it in this country, let's say I got a rate of interest of 9.59. This is inclusive of two variables, just like many other loans out there. There's a fixed margin. So anyone over here can get a loan between 5 to 8.5%. Let's say I applied, I got a 7.2. You might actually even get a 7.1 even if me and you were going to the same program, the same school at the same year, because every application is uniquely assessed. We are not a traditional bank or NBFC who will come and tell you 10.5%, 13%, 14%. So I see some questions over here. What would my ROI be approximately? The truth is, I don't know the answer because there is no human sitting behind a loan. It is all computerized. It works on our proprietary model. So to understand your rate of interest, spend 20 minutes on the Prodigy Finance website, hit submit, and you'll get to know your ROI. So you would get to know what your fixed margin is, anywhere between 5 to 8.5%. The one which is here in blue would never change. And the variable, if you were, let's say, going for a USD loan, your variable rate would be 2.5%. This has actually been 2.59%. This has actually been the highest in the last 50 years. So I definitely want you to go read up what LIBOR is. Every loan floats on a variable rate. In India, it's called MCLR. At US, it's called USD LIBOR. If you were going to a Europe school, it would be Eurobor. So these variable rates change every day. We apply it 4 times every year. That is basically at every quarter. One very quick question again from Yash. If he was staying off campus, will Prodigy fund me for off campus? Absolutely. We do not really force you on where you need to stay. It's based on your comfort and your agility on where you would actually want to be taking care of your housing. What happens is we transfer your tuition and your living expenses to the university directly, and the university transfers it to your student local account. So it could either be a US account, or it could be an account if you were going to the Europe or wherever in the world. Sorry, just give me a minute. I am facing a slight logistic glitch. Okay, I'm back. Great. Amazing questions. Like I said, we're almost at the last 2 slides, and we do have this webinar allocated for 30 minutes, but we can go a bit over. I want to keep this as casual, as interactive as possible. Great. So this is the process. Now, all of this is great. We spoke about who Prodigy is. We spoke about how we do what we do. What is our risk appetite? How is interest rate broken up? The advantages of the Prodigy Finance loan. Let's talk about 7 steps all the way from right now till you start paying your loan. So the first thing is you go online and you register and apply. The minute you fill in a 30-minute application, and this 30-minute application is more or less like a Google form. We ask you for a couple of things before step 2, and we ask you for a couple of questions before step 2, and all you have to do is just input. At this point, we require no documentation, and even if we do require a documentation, that would only be in form of online. We will never need to submit anything offline. So you submit an application, and within seconds you receive your quote. That is step 2. Your quote is going to tell you your loan size, your rate of interest, your repayment period, and other details associated to a loan. If you like that offer, you can go ahead and you can accept your quote. The beauty over here is you can start 5 applications for 5 dream schools, because my belief is that you wouldn't want to be going to only one school in the world. You would probably have 5 options, and all these 5 options, there's a very good chance will differ. So from a return of investment point of view, you can apply to school 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you will get 5 different rates, and you would be surprised to see maybe school 4 has a lower rate of interest and a higher loan size. So from a financial standpoint, that probably made more sense. And if school 4 has good career placements, a good cohort with international diversity, and is a well-known ranked school, then it becomes a no-brainer. A lot of our students over the past 10 years have told us that the Prodigy Finance loan quote process, because it gives you multiple quotes, has helped them even narrow on their dream school, because everyone on an average sometimes receives 3 to 4 admits. So let's say I chose that school 4, right? I'm just going to call it 4. I do not want to be advocating any schools at this point. So all you need to do then is submit a couple of documents. Your proof of admission that you indeed have got an admit from the school, your passport copy, which will act as your KYC, and your proof of address, which is basically where you're currently staying. So these 3 things are pretty simple. They can literally be lying down on your desktop screen. All you need to do is do a quick drag and drop, and they get uploaded. The 4th thing that we look for is a credit report. Now, we don't look for a credit score. We are looking for a credit report. The reason is this loan is based completely on your merit of getting into a top 100 school around the world, 1. 2, there's no collateral or co-signer. So we just want to verify and see if you are a trustworthy borrower to lend to, because that's a risk appetite, right? And in most of our cases, our students have no sort of credit, which is great. At a young age of 22, 23, if you have no credit, that is pretty great, because that shows us that you have been taking responsible decisions at the age of 22, 23. You can go online, get a credit report from Experian, and you can submit that, and that is going to show a no hit or no record found. For the people that do have a credit score, for example, I have a credit score, but I don't have any loans and I have a credit card, that is completely okay. We're not looking for a minimum or a maximum score. We are just trying to understand your borrowing history, if any. The minute you accept your quote at step 4, which I just narrated, you accept all your documents, and within 7 working days, you receive your confirmed loan letter to secure your visa. This is your holy grail. This is what you will use for your visa interview, and it is free of cost. So this visa letter is a confirmation from our side, And you signing the agreement, which is step number 6, is a confirmation from your side. I'll tell you what the beauty over here is. The beauty is we are not asking you for a token amount to give you that loan letter, right? We are not asking you for 1% or 15,000 rupees. 1% could be as high as 70 or 80,000 rupees depending on your loan size. We don't want any of that. We want to empower the student that they make wise decisions based on their financial capability, and we do not want to lock you in or pressurize you in taking something that you're not completely certain about. So let's say, God forbid, if there's an instance and you cannot fly to the US this year, that's fall 2019, shoot us an email. Hey, I'm not going to be making it to school this year. I would like to withdraw my application. Within 2 business days, your loan gets cancelled, you lose no money. So the point I'm trying to make over here is step 1 to 5, you're completely commitment free. So you can probably even have another loan, or you could have inquired from any other banks, but we are not going to lock you into this, and the only place we confirm it is when you arrive in the country of study, which normally happens 2 weeks before orientation week. And if you are in the country of study 2 weeks before O week, my belief is you should know where your funding is coming from. And if your funding is coming from Prodigy Finance, you electronically sign this agreement and we countersign, and your loan becomes financially binding. Last but not the least, for full-time programs, there are 24 months of study and 6 months of grace. So another reality is you would not be paying a single dollar to Prodigy Finance all the way from now till your first month and till your 38th month of grace gets over, provided this was a 2-year program, 24 months. So the benefits are endless. The collateral and co-signer not burdening your payments is pretty much unique in the way it's propositioned in not only this country but across the region. So figure these things out, play around the website, and compare with other lenders on what this quote looks like and go for the best option. I do have one follow-up question here, which is regarding CIBIL score. I'm not very sure on what CIBIL defaulter is. There are different types of defaulters. There are willful defaulters. There are defaulters that just default a credit card payment. If you just default a credit card payment for 1 or 2 months, you can go ahead and pay it. We're not going to penalize you for it, because a credit card bill would rather be a very small fraction for a loan that would probably be the biggest finance debt you will end up taking in your entire life, right? They're quite expensive. So there's no right or wrong answer to this, Yash, but I would suggest please make payments regularly, because this does affect your credit report. All right. So this is a very interesting slide, right? So this morning, I actually tried cracking this down, and I wanted to talk about how loans are compared. I had a couple of people give in some questions about Indian related loans earlier in the chat box. So I'm going to talk about public sector banks, which are basically banks all across the world, NBFCs, which is a term in India, but outside they're called something else. And then you have international lenders. I'm going to quickly skim through these just to give you a bit of an understanding. What you need to look over here is what type of lenders are out there and how they actually differ from each other. So one is public sector banks give you up to 90% cost of attendance. NBFCs give you up to 100% cost of attendance. International lenders like Prodigy Finance give you up to 100% COA as well, right? Now, cost of attendance is cost of living and cost of tuition as determined by the university. Public sector banks require a collateral and co-signer at all times. You will not be able to get a loan from them without having both, right? So if you do not have collateral or property on your name, this becomes challenging. And if you do not have a co-signer, if your co-applicant's your co-applicant's profile isn't strong enough, this could affect your chances in terms of a loan size or maybe even interest rate. You can check with your respective banks on the same. NBFCs, on the other hand, is a very interesting deal, because you do not require collateral up to $50,000 in most of the cases. Over that, they will ask you for collateral because your loan size is quite significant. And they, of course, will always require a co-signer. With Prodigy Finance, as I rightly said, and I'm going to say it for the third time, we never require collateral and we never require cosigner. And for the last 11 years, we haven't, and even going in the future, we would not be doing so. Interest rates, all of these interest rates are variable. For public sector banks, it's somewhere around 10.75%. For NBFCs, it's currently around 11.25 to 12.55%. They've seen a recent hike recently. And for Prodigy Finance, of course, our LIBOR has increased. In January, it was 2.8%, but in the next quarter, it reduced down to 2.5%. But what's most interesting over here is your fixed rate will always be unique. We will not be really slapping a rate just based on where you are going. It will be determined once you submit that application. And that makes a very big difference, because let's say if I get a 7%, right? And if I'm going to the US, my LIBOR is 2.59. So I'm effectively looking at a rate of 9.59 without collateral, without cosigner, and the entire process is online. So these are some things to look forward to. One thing that I really want to talk about is hidden costs and APR. I'm going to first talk about hidden costs. So public sector banks and NBFCs sometimes have admin fee, insurance, conversion fee. All of this is not built into your loan. So you don't realize these things until the very last minute. When you need a visa letter, they ask you for the admin fee, which is for your loan letter. They ask you to take their certain type of insurance, which is another 0.85 to 1.5%. Your admin fee could be 10,000 to 1%, and your conversion fee could be anywhere between 0.5 to 1.5% because you're converting an INR loan to USD. Similarly, for NBFCs, it would be almost similar. With Prodigy Finance, we have a one-time admin fee of 2.5%. For example, if I was borrowing $40,000, my one-time admin fee would be $1,000 to Prodigy Finance, and this is built into the loan. That is, you do not pay for it upfront. We just add it to your loan account. And if you ever want to pay this off, you can make any sort of repayments, or in this case, prepayments, after your first disbursement. APR. It's a pretty complex one. I do not want to take a lot of time, but I think it's a very important one because this is the holy grail, guys, right? It is basically a tool to compare loan offer A to B to C. So in this case, go with the lowest APR, right? I don't know what the APR for public sector banks and NBFCs are because I don't know what their hidden costs incur. But for Prodigy Finance, it would be anywhere between 8.16 to 11.9%. Because APR does two things. It exposes all costs associated to a financial product or a loan, A. B, it also helps you compare the best offer between offer A, B, and C. And the third thing is, this is not widely spoken about in many geographies. And let's take India, for example. It's because it's not mandated by the RBI. So if you are dealing with an institution outside of your home country, let's say in the UK, the FCA regulates that APR needs to be there because it exposes all the costs associated to our loans. In our case, it's that 2.5% admin fee which the APR is collecting. APR is not your rate of interest. APR will always be greater than your rate of interest because it will talk about that additional cost of taking a certain service. We spoke about repayment and prepayment penalties. Repayment periods are up to 20 years with Prodigy Finance. You can see the other 2 years in the description here on the left. And prepayment penalties are none for public sector banks. And for NBFCs, you're not allowed to pay for the first 1 year. So let's say you get that RA or TA and you want to clear off that $4,000 to $6,000 debt because you have an excess of $5,000 of, let's say, a $60,000 loan. You could do it with Prodigy Finance and public sector banks. Documentation is very extensive across banks. As you know, it requires a lot of student and parent copies. It's pretty extensive and can take anywhere up to 4+ weeks. Similarly, with NBFCs, it's a bit better, but again, there are a lot of hard copies and a lot of trips with your local banks that can take anywhere up to 3+ weeks. With Prodigy Finance, like I rightly told you, we require only 4 documents, and that is only after we give you a rate or a code card, and we always require details only of the student. We will never take any details of your parent, your mother, or your relative. and we will always take soft copies. And I'm trying to be fair here with other categories. So Prodigy Finance can sometimes even take 2 or 3 weeks, because it all depends on how religious you are in uploading and finishing that application process. I have seen turnaround times where students get their loan approved as short as 3 or 4 days, if not 7 or 8 days, right? So just stay true, just be way committed while finishing that online process if Prodigy Finance is your option, and we should be able to get you that confirmed loan letter quite immediately. Their value added benefits, none for public sector banks. NBFCs have some very interesting student discounts which you can check out. With Prodigy Finance, we have a scholarships program. We even have a career support team which help you, guide you, and steer you to finding that dream job. Because let's face it, your graduation is our repayment, so we go that extra mile in making sure you get all the resources and support in finding that dream job. I have an interesting question here from Yash again. And Yash, thank you so much for being such an active participant. His question is, if I reach the US, how will I get to know how I should start the disbursement process? Do I need to tell Prodigy team that I've reached the US, or how does it work? Great question. I'm in fact just going to go one slide ahead, one slide before, I'm sorry. And if you see over here, the minute you confirm your application with supporting documents and you receive your loan letter with for your visa, you will even be told when this disbursement will happen on that loan letter, right? Because alongside the loan letter, you will have something called an additional document which talks about when you need to sign the agreement in step 6, and it will even talk about when the money is going to be going to the said university, because we have the dates of the university and we know when it needs to be transferred. And to answer your question, which I know is how will we know you're in the US? Because you digitally sign it from step 6. We use a software called Adobe EcoSign, and we already track your IP that you've actually landed your country of study. In your case, it would be United States. So the button to sign your loan agreement will turn blue from a gray if you are in India. The loan agreement is available to see, but it will be available to sign once you leave India. So they're basically 3 documents that you get, right? One is you receive your quote, which is step 2. That's the first document you get. The second document you get is you get your loan letter, your confirmed loan letter, which is step 5. And then the third document you get is your loan agreement, which will have date of disbursement, and it will have date of signing on when you need to sign, so you can plan when you need to fly out to the US and sign it. This is ideally normally 1 or 2 weeks before disbursement or orientation week. And my belief is if you're actually going to a foreign country, try traveling a bit earlier, because you're going to be there for 3 to 5 years, depending on your program. So it's always good to get a bit comfy before class starts. One more question, can we approve a loan before the admit? No, we cannot, Sahil, but your quote will always be a true reflection to your confirmed loan letter. They ideally should not differ until unless there was misinformation provided from your side. So we really need the admit to understand that you are actually going to the school, because we need to be giving you a legal document that says that you are confirmed for this loan. So if you really want to understand your loan quote, you don't need an admit. You can start the Prodigy Finance application without an admit, and just be true and candid to the application. And the same thing would be on your confirmed loan letter once we verify your documents in step 4. Another follow-up question, is it necessary to pay the €25 or will hard copy work or soft copy will work? Yash, in most cases, soft copy works. And I think in majority of the cases, soft copy works. You can literally take a color printout from your home printer and you can take it along for your visa interview. This has not been a problem. The €25 where you request for a hard copy is sometimes needed by a certain type of universities, and I don't think it's really a visa requirement. It kind of becomes a university requirement. But based on my experience, soft copy works pretty fine. You can join our WhatsApp groups, and it's worked for thousands and thousands of students over the years. We have a new question from Saurabh. What to do if my university is listed but my course is not listed? Is there anything we can do on this? Saurabh, yes, we can support it. Just because your course is not listed, that doesn't mean we cannot support it. It depends. I'm guessing you're going for a MS program. So as long as it's a STEM program under an engineering top 100 school, we will be able to support it. Please write us an email and we will get this added on the application in 2 or 3 working days so you can process your application. I do have one quick question, and I know we are 10 minutes over, but I see some really high engagement over here. We have close to 15 people in the room today. So I am going to go ahead and speak a bit more and see if there are more questions. I want everyone to probably just type over here 2 things. One is which year you're going, either 2019 or 2020, and which program are you going for? Because the next 10 minutes, I'm going to try altering my conversations on how it will benefit you. Great. So we have an interesting question from Vijay. It says, what is interest rate parity? So interest rate parity is basically a fundamental on how currencies and fluctuations occur across economical markets. So to understand this better, you need to understand how they actually fluctuate. So I won't be really able to comment on how they fluctuate, because if I knew, I would be a billionaire by now. So what you could do, Vijay, is go back, see the trends on how your certain type of currency has fluctuated over the last 50 years and understand what this means for you. But do not forget the benefits of each lender. Each lender has a certain type of USP. Try to understand that USP, break out the math on your current scenario and see how that will affect you on a 10 or 15-year period. Because see, currencies fluctuate all the time. What you need to understand is if something goes down, it could probably go up or vice versa. So you need to see how this actually affects you on a 10 and 15-year long period. And of course, use APR to calculate this and see if you are actually getting the better deal of the bargain or not. Great. I see some folks going to sunny Buffalo, industrial engineering, Northeastern, MS and CS. Great. I see some MS students here. We support both of these, Saurabh and Yash. Congratulations on your admit. And I think both of them are pretty much 2019 courses. I know, Yash, you're going for a 2020, but all the very best. I'm going to quickly scroll up and see if I have any more questions. I missed one question from Yash, and it says about if I get around 11% rate of interest now, so in the next 2 years, what would be my ROI? Yash, your fixed component will never change, right? It will always be, let's say you got a 7 between 5 to 8.5%, it will always stay 7. What will actually fluctuate will be your variable rate. So if the variable rate goes up, your interest rate will increase for that 90 days before it changes again. If your variable rate goes down, remember, it will actually even decrease. So your rate of interest could even decrease. And depending on your currency, if you were looking at a euro loan, I think the euro loan is quite minimum, if not zero right now. You can go ahead and you can see the current Eurobor. So you would just be charged fixed rate till the Eurobor actually increases. So these are some interesting concepts to go look at, and I'm going to leave that over there. Vijay is going to Penn State. Wow, MS in Mechanical Engineering. Congratulations. I see that's fall 2020. Perfect. I think, Vijay, you're super early to the party, and like I rightly say, is it's never too early for things like this, right? A master's is a once in a lifetime opportunity. You're literally gonna get one shot. And our good friends at Imperial and Eduloans are subject matter experts in helping you through that rigor of making sure you get through the best dream school in your life. And that's the first side of the coin. The second side of the coin is funding it, because they are not cheap. This would, I rightly said, it could be the biggest financial debt you ever take. So think it through, compare loan offers, understand what it means. I think the questions that have come up today have been super, super great. And I want to be respectful of everyone's time. I see nobody has left the webinar. We have a strong attendance of 15, and we are right about touching the 45-minute mark. I'm going to use this as a caveat to hand it over to Gurpreet to wrap up the session.
Uh, Thank you so much, Pritish, for taking us through such a wonderful webinar session today. We have just one question here, which has been put directly to the organizer. Uh, so I'll just read it out so you could answer it. I have a Prodigy pre-approved loan. This question comes from Rahul. He says, I have a Prodigy pre-approved loan for second year of 30,000 US dollars. How good are the chances of the same getting approved?
Could you repeat the question, Gurpreet? Sorry.
Sure, I'll do that. So Rahul says, I have a Prodigy pre-approved loan for second year of 30,000 US dollars. How good are the chances of the same getting approved?
Perfect. Okay, sorry. I actually got confused between the candidate applying now and next year and trying to see the difference. Okay, but I totally get your question, Gurpreet. Rahul, superb question. So one thing that I didn't mention, and thank you so much, Rahul, for bringing it up. If you're doing a 2-year program, Prodigy Finance loan letters are actually split by year, by academic year. This means two things. One is you don't need to commit to a loan in year 2 if you don't need it. Because let's say I take $40,000 in year 1, $40,000 in year 2. Traditional banks will lock you for $80,000 irrespective of what your financial situation is. Let's say you get a RA or you get a TA or you get a job, and let's say you're working at a Walmart or a McDonald's, or mom sends you some money for Diwali. You can take a lesser loan size than $30,000 or $40,000 based on my hypothetical example. You do not need to be committed to that $40,000 in year 2 because you only confirm that $40,000 closer to the end of year 1. One of our loan executives, our support team, will reach out to you and be like, hey Rahul, how's it going? Just wanted to confirm if you still need that $30,000. And we will give you that $30,000 provided two things. One, there was no misinformation from your side based on this information. Two, if you haven't taken any additional debt, let's say you went ahead and you took a home loan, or let's say you went ahead and you bought a car, right? This is going to affect your chances on getting that amount, because we do not account for this additional debt, which is quite a significant amount when you took the loan earlier with us in year 1. But to answer your question and not scare you, this rarely happens because our students, like I said, are so agile and they understand what loans mean for them, and they wouldn't be doing ludicrous things like this. So yes, if you need that $30,000, you will get it. And if you need lesser, you can even get it. Just show us proof that you have the remaining amount and take a lesser loan size. Do not take loans, or do not take a loan size if you don't need it. Taking debt is not great, right? So I will always empower you first to try seeing on your savings, ask for soft loans, and only then go towards a loan provider, whether it be Prodigy or anyone else. Quick question from Sahil, do we get funds while in home country or after reaching the destination country? You get the funds directly in the US, and you don't get the funds. Your university gets the funds as pretty much the host and the guardian for you in the international country, and they transfer the living expenses to you in that local currency. So rest assured, don't worry. I would say just carry a couple of $1,000 just while you're going there, because you will need it just for the first 1 or 2 weeks. And if you're flying abroad for the first time, or even for the first time for 3-4 years, I would say please do take some funds with you and don't depend just on a loan. Rest assured, the money will reach you.
It's been a really informative session. Thank you so much for your time today, Pritish. And we'll just take one last question, which has come in from Vijay Agarwal, which states, what is comparison between loan in rupees and dollars?
Great. Vijay, you need to look at two things here. One is you need to understand where you will be after your education, right? Let's say you were going to the US. Your program is 2 years, you get 3 years of OPT, you're probably there for 5 years. And you earn in USDs, you will pay back in USD, right? If you plan to come back to INR, you will need to convert that. But always remember, the Prodigy loan you earlier took had no conversion fee. It was directly dispersed in USD, so you get covered by all market fluctuations for the entire study and grace period. So there is no actually comparison between two currencies because we are talking about two currencies. What you need to look at is the concept of APR. Understand what are the hidden costs towards a loan product. How is this going to impact you? One, during your study and grace period, and two, during your entire tenure of your loan of 10, 15 years. And of course, the USPs of a product. If you want to repay a loan, you could do it with us. I'm not sure if that would always be the case with other lenders, but ask. If you don't ask, the answer is always going to be no. So these are great questions. I would say just do some research and definitely look up the concept of APR.
There's a request come in. There are three questions, so we will just take these three last questions. One has come in from Sahil Daman, and there are two more questions that we have from Rahul. So we just take these last three questions, and then
Please.
the students can feel free to contact the numbers that show up on the screen. These are the numbers for the loan counselors. Uh, these are specialist counselors who who specialize in education loans at Eduloans. So I am Gurpreet, I'm the product manager, and we have loan counselors. So you can always call them on these numbers, and they will be more than happy to give you all kind of information you would like to know about Prodigy Finance, as well as the other options that Eduloans has to offer. So we'll just take these last three questions, and then you can feel free to call us on the numbers, and we will be more than happy to assist you with your answers. Pritish, if you could just scroll to the last three questions and have the answers for the same, please.
Sure. Actually, I might be having a different view, but I think I've just answered Sahil questions on how he would get the funds, as in the university will get the funds and they will transfer it to Sahil directly. That would be his living expenses and they will take the tuition. That's one. Rahul has a question, can we get funds for flight and laptop? As of now, Prodigy Finance supports funding for living plus tuition up to 100% if you're doing an MS program in the US. Rahul, what I will ask you is that we support living as per the university. So let's say if the university says you need $10,000 to stay, that might not necessarily be the case because let's face it, like we as people sometimes can make ends meet and we maybe only need $8,000. So if you need that extra $2,000, then request for $10,000 as your living. And you can buy your laptop or your flight or whatever you need. Flight, not so much because you would need it before you actually sign the agreement. But laptop, yes, you can probably accommodate that in the living expenses depending on what your scenario is like. But as of now, we strictly support living and tuition costs as determined by the university. Am I missing?
Sorry, yeah, there's one question that has come directly to us as an organizer. Rahul says that there was a question about LIBOR. So he says, sir, you forgot LIBOR question. Kindly throw some light on this.
Sure. So LIBOR is basically a variable rate, right? Every currency has a variable rate. Indian loans float on something called MCLR. USD variable rates float on LIBOR. Euro loans float on Eurobor, right? And every loan product has a fixed and a variable component. Now, your fixed component with any loan education lender out there will stay constant. Your variable will change every day. In our case, it changes every day, but we apply it 4 times in a year. So LIBOR fluctuates every day and every quarter. That's January 8th, April 8th, July 8th, and November 8th, we apply the updated LIBOR, right? So your rate of interest would fluctuate according to that. And this will keep happening over the next period of 5, 7, 10, 15 years. Now, to understand what this means, you need to go do some research because financial concepts are pretty serious. See what this means, see what variable rates are, how they fluctuate, and how it actually impacts your rate of interest. If today your rate of interest is 9.32% without a collateral and cosigner, tomorrow it could be 9.73. but day after it could again be 9.1 if the variable rate comes down. So it's all subjective, and I can't really make a prediction on what this would mean for you. I have another question from Sahil, and this would be the last one I'll be taking, Gurpreet, in the interest of time. Does the interest rate calculation start from day one, or is there a sleep time during the education course and completion? Sahil, the interest rate is calculated only once the amount is dispersed, two, only on the amount dispersed. So for example, if you took a loan for $40,000 and you were dispersed only $10,000 in February 1st, interest will first only accrue on $10,000 and not on the initial $40,000. This concept is called simple interest, right? So pretty flexible that way. And after your first disbursements, you're more than happy, or you can feel free to make any sort of prepayments if your capacity allows you to do so.
So I think so with this we come to the end of today's webinar series with Prodigy Finance, and it was really an informative session that Pritesh has conducted today. We are open to any kind of questions that the students might have. And what I mean to say, being very informative, is that we found that most of the attendees did stay till the end on this webinar session. So you can feel free to contact our loan counselors on the numbers, and this session has been recorded, so you can always recheck the recording. You can have a look at the recording on our website, on our portal, which is www.eduloans.org. You could go on to Knowledge Hub. There's a tab called Knowledge Hub. Under that you have events. So we will ensure that in the next 2 to 3 days this session will be uploaded there, so you can feel free. You can even tell your friends to go there and have a look at the option of Prodigy Finance, and they can listen to the entire recording, and they can take advantage of Prodigy Finance for their overseas education. Pritesh, we really we thank you for taking your time out from your busy schedule and letting students know about this option, which would best suit their requirements.
Thank you, Gurpreet, for all the efforts, and thank you once again, Eduloans, for organizing this. And we look forward to being back very soon. On that note, have a great day and enjoy your weekend. Cheers. Bye.
We would be conducting such webinars going forward as well. That's just one last point I would like to say, that we have started these Eduloans series of webinars. So every Saturday we have it between 4 to 4:30. We will be sending the necessary communication through proper channels to all the students who can feel free to join in these sessions and take advantage of our financial institutions, who will be explaining about the different benefits that they have and the different kind of options that you can explore on the education loan front. We thank everyone for being a part of this webinar today, and thank you so much all. You have a wonderful day ahead. Bye bye.